Hello guys, welcome back to Mr. Cloudbook channel. Today is the day 48 of the Kubernetes masterclass, and in this video we are going to learn about the config maps. And if you have any doubts, please reach out in the Discord channel we have. Okay, I will drop the link in the description as well. And let's talk about the config maps in a simple way. Okay, so imagine you have a big robot. Okay, I have one robot here, and that needs the special instructions to run properly. These instructions could include the things like what color the robot should be, how loudly it should speak or talk, and what time zone it should follow the display of your clock. Okay, so I want a IST time zone. I want the robot in the black color. So whatever the color you want, so that is up to you. Okay, you can write your own specification or specific instructions like that. Okay, so instead of hard coding the all these requirements, okay, whatever you want a time zone, you want color, and you want how loud it should speak. Okay, so and everything. So instead of hard coding them into your robot, so what you have to do, wouldn't it be a smarter to write down them in a elsewhere? Okay, so I have one notebook, and what I will do is I will use that particular notebook. Okay, here this is one my notebook. Okay, I will use this notebook. Okay, so in that particular notebook, what I will do, and I will write down all the requirements that I need for my robot. So I am going to need the particular Indian Standard Time, black color, and which language it should speak, Telugu or English, that is up to me. And I'll write everything into that particular notebook here. So this way, if you ever needed to change the instructions, you just write down, you just need to go here in this particular book and update here. So you don't need to go into that your particular pod or particular to the robot to change them. Okay, you just need to change your in your notebook. Okay, so these instructions will use by this particular robot, and it will talk with you in a convenient way. Okay, you just write in the notebook and your robot will instantly know what to do without messing with actual machinery. Okay, so it will use the default ones, but it will override whatever you wanted to in your notebook. Okay, without messing the actual machinery. So in Kubernetes, this notebook is called as the config map. So this is called as the config map. It's a central place where you store your configuration data for your application running inside the containers. Okay. So what is the Kubernetes config map? First of all, a config map in Kubernetes is an API object that lets you store the key value pairs of a configuration data in a centralized and manageable way. These key value pairs can application settings or the environment variables or file paths or even the entire configuration files that your app needs to be function. So with Kubernetes config maps, you don't have to hardcore configuration values inside your app code or container images. Instead of, you can place all the configs into a config map and connect it to your application dynamically. This makes your app more flexible and easier to update when changes are needed. I have a pod. It needs some values. What I will do, I will use the config map. This is the easy way it will use this particular config map. Okay, if I want to have the values inside my pod, so I added 100 values here and in 100 places, one value in 100 places. So if I go inside pod and change, maybe I will miss some value. But if I use config map and if I change at one place, it will replace in the all the places, right? That we can use the config map in your Kubernetes. Okay, this makes your app more flexible and easier to update when the changes are needed. So why the config maps are important? Separation of concerns. It separates your app's code from its configuration, making both easier to manage. And we have the flexibility. You can easily update the configuration without rebuilding your application or redeploying your application. Scalability. When working with the clusters and multiple containers, config maps allows you to manage configurations more efficiently. Why do you need the config maps? Think about a real world scenario. where config maps makes your life easier. Say you are deploying a website, the website needs a configuration file to set them like the light mode or the dark mode. Okay, some environment variables is to define where the logs will be stored. So a URL to connect an external API service like that. At that time you can use the config maps. So instead of creating a 10 slightly different container images for every variation of your website, you can create a single container and use the config map to change these settings dynamically as needed. Okay, this saves time and effort and frustration as well. Without config maps, you would have to either rebuild your application every time you wanted to update the config value and hardcore values directly into the application. Okay, which is breaks flexibility definitely. So, and not a good way, good practice also adding the values into your particular application. With config maps, you make your app smarter and configuration much easier to handle. How does a config map actually works? Let's explain using an easy follow to workflow. Create a config map. So what you will do, first you define the configuration values like dark mode, light mode, log level, debug or anything in YAML or a JSON format. That is up to you. In Kubernetes, YAML is good for you. So it is easily understandable. And inject the config map into your application. So this will particular, your application will go and link that particular config map, and you will tell the app to fetch the values from that particular config map. Okay. And next update the config maps if you needed to change anything. That is up to you. That is the easy way. Okay, you can use simply config maps. So we will see the simple demo as well. So config maps and everything. So here let's see any running nodes are there or pods. Okay, kubectl get nodes. So simple commands, these are already we know. Kubectl get pods. By default we don't get any, but we will get these. Okay, these are all from the control plane itself that are needed for our Kubernetes cluster. And this is running, I think, 1.31 latest version. So if you want to read more about the Kubernetes config maps, you can go to this one, kubernetes.io. That is up to you. This is the official page. You can use your CK exam as well. So go to the config maps, so which is pretty straightforward. Go here and you can read it from here itself. Config map is an API object. We discussed the same thing, motivation, object and everything, and you can see that data. So initial lives 3, so we are defining here, and it will particular pod whatever it will use there. Okay, so and user interface properties, so these are different properties we can change later whenever we want. See, color good purple, so if you want to change the color directly you can update the config map, it will take care over there. Okay, how you have to reference it in your pod, and you can see that env, so value from config map key reference. So config map key reference means it will take the values from your particular config map. So player initial lives, this will take the value from here. So this is the key and this is the value. And here we are calling that. Okay, see, key is this one and value will come from there. And UI properties file name, and it comes from here. And you can see that user interface properties. Okay, you can call it like this, value from config map key reference. Okay, config map, so take the value from the config map. So and you want to add any volume mounts, that is up to you. We will talk in the upcoming sessions about the volumes like persistent volumes and persistent claims. Okay, in a simple way I will explain, no need to worry about it. So what I will do is I will create one file here, vi1.yaml, enter, and API, sorry, API version, so that is v1, kind is config map, so you have to provide correct values here, config map, metadata, a mist, so don't forget it properly, indent it, align in a good way, name equals to anything you want, app config, I want simple config, so data, so I will use this. Okay, so what I will do, theme, so I want light mode. Okay, for my application, so what I will use is I will use light mode, enter, and log level. Okay, in your production don't use debug mode. Okay, so use info. Okay, this is for simple normal way. So come out of it. Ajay, where did you get these values again? API version kind, config map, all. Okay, so and you can come here, kubectl explain config map, enter. And if you go up here, so this is the kind and this is the version we are using. So the remaining are same, API version, data, kind, metadata, these are immutable. So you can check these all later on. Okay, so cat1.yml. Okay, so what I will do is I'll apply it using kubectl apply -f1.yml, enter. So that is done. Okay, so my config map is created and kubectl get config maps. Okay, you can see that this is what we created now, app config. This is the name. Okay, 10 seconds ago. So what I will do is I will create a simple deployment for my config map. Okay, let's come here. So take it from here. Don't make it mess. Deployments and come down and take one of the simple application deployment.yml. So take it vi2.yml and paste it. So all you need to do is go to insert mode and here you can add the values envs. Okay, so env, so from, so where you want the env value, so read it properly. See, it's using inside the container. Why we have to provide the inside of the container means, so our container will use, okay, you can see that. So inside of the containers we are using the env. Okay, so value, config map and everything. Our container needs to be used that particular value, right? Where pod will run? Pod will run, I mean the application will run on containers, but which is immutable inside the pod, right? So that's why we have to write inside the env from here, and you have to write config map key ref. Okay, reference. So it will take name. So what is our config map name? That is app-config. Okay, come out of it. And where did you get the values? kubectl get config map. How did you write the name, right? So here this is the name I used for my config map. That's why I am giving directly name. Okay, what I will do is I will directly describe. Okay, you can edit or you can do whatever you want. Okay, so what I will do, kubectl apply -f2.yml, enter. And if you see, sorry, clear the screen, kubectl get deploy, so deployments, so all are running. So kubectl describe deploy nginx deployment, enter. And you can read it from here. I think we not able to see here properly. We will see inside the pod directly those values, our whatever we used kubectl get pods maybe. Yeah, so describe kubectl describe pod and paste it. And if you will see, the environment variables are coming from app config, right? So these are all values comes from here itself. You will use them directly. Okay, let's see, is there any possible way we will try to exec into it. -it, sorry, not this one. Let's take any nginx deployment. Okay, we will take anything, fine. Okay, space sh envs. So we used env, right? You can check from here. See what is the theme it's using, light mode, right? Log level is info. So I will come out of it. I can edit the values here. Okay, directly kubectl edit config map. So app-config. Okay, enter. So what is the theme I'm using? Light mode, right? So I will make it to dark mode, and I will change it to debug. Let's see. Okay, it's edited, right? kubectl get cm, maybe, yeah, config maps short form. See, this is edited actually, you can see that. And if you describe kubectl describe cm, maybe it's stuck. 1 minute, let me reconnect to this particular killer code. It's disconnected. Okay, kubectl describe cm app config, enter. And you can see that we are using dark mode and debug now, right? And let's try to see get pods. Okay, let's see it will creating another pod or not. Okay, it's creating one more pod. Let's exec into it. So -it and -sh. It should pick the latest value. I think it won't. Oh, it's picking the latest value. You can see that. So now it works fine without any issue, right? Debug mode and it's changed to dark mode. So this is the easy way you can use the config maps without facing any issue. And I hope you understand this particular config maps. Let's go with the other video in the next session. And thanks for supporting to Mr. Cloudbook channel and keep on supporting to Mr. Cloudbook channel.